Today we are looking at the case of Andre Thomas. He was sentenced to death at only 21 years old, and while he was locked up, he gouged out his own eyeball and ate it. But what caused these crazy and gruesome acts, and did the system completely fail him? Before we continue, I'd like to let you know that I plan to upload a new chilling case every week, so if you'd like to see more, then please do subscribe. But without further ado, let's unravel this unthinkable case. Andre Thomas was born on the 17th of March 1983 to Rochelle and Danny Thomas. He was the fourth of 6 boys and they lived in Sherman, Texas, which is just 60 miles from Dallas. Andre and his brothers had a very difficult upbringing. The Thomas family have suffered a long history of alcohol dependency and mental health illness, especially on Rochelle's side. Rochelle predominantly raised her sons alone, which is if raising 6 children single-handedly isn't difficult enough. She was also an alcoholic and suffered with mental illness herself. She would often hear voices which she considered to be messages from God. Despite his troubled home life, Andre performed outstandingly well in school and earned himself a place in the school's gifted and talented programme. He was described as smart and a respectful boy who enjoyed sketching and working on cars. His dad recalled him being a tinkerer and often disassembling and reassembling parts to see how they worked. He also sketched car designs he one day planned to build. By high school, he was said to be a very talented artist. Andre was also very passionate for his Sunday school. He was described by his teachers as very curious and eager, often shooting his hand up before the question was even finished. Harmony Baptist served as a second home during his chaotic childhood. During the winter months, his Sunday school teacher would purposely drop Andre and his brothers back home last to keep them warm a little bit longer on the bus. She claimed he could have been so brilliant with the right set of circumstances. No one, however, expected the devastatingly brutal path he would veer down. Andre's behaviour began to change around only 10 years old. He would tell his friends that he could hear angels and demons arguing inside his head. Sometimes he was said to have argued back with these voices, which caused him to have really wide eyes and to break out in a sweat. As a result, he started to drink alcohol and take substances in an attempt to quieten the voices. By this point, his attendance to church had also started to drop, and he was said to seem as though he was off in his own little world. By the age of only 13, Andre had already attempted to take his own life twice. At only 10 years old, he cut his own wrists, and at 13 years old, he was hacking at his arm with a butcher's knife, after being told by his own mum that she wishes she had aborted him. Something you never wish to hear your own mum say. As if hearing that from your mum isn't enough, his dad saw the whole ordeal and gave him tips on how to do it better. Talk about Dad of the Year. I just find it so heartbreaking that a child of that age even has those kinds of thoughts. He'd also experienced multiple arrests by the age of 15 when he was committing petty crimes and thefts. While in juvenile detention, he was placed on watch after developing thoughts of wanting to end his own life. But he was released only 2 days later and he didn't receive any follow-up on his mental health. Andre and his girlfriend were dating for several years before she fell pregnant with her first child, Andre Jr., whom Andre lovingly nicknamed Juicy. To support his new family, Andre dropped out of school and worked several jobs, including washing dishes and digging graves. On the 17th of March 2001, which was Andre's 18th birthday, the two exchanged vows at Harmony Baptist. They lived together for only a short while because their relationship started to break down, and they finally separated ways for good only 4 months later. Laura moved into her parents' home with her son. Ultimately, this breakup caused Andre's mental health to deteriorate massively, where he suffered more intense delusions with his voices in his head screaming at him and the thoughts to take his own life just increasing. He became obsessed with the dollar bill, believing it contained a code explaining the meaning of life, and at times he would duct tape his mouth shut for days on end to silence himself. When Andre was 19 years old, he moved in with his brother Brian. He too suffered mentally and had only recently been released from a mental hospital. Their time living together, however, was as chaotic as their childhood had been and was often violent. On one occasion, they got into an argument over the volume of Andre's music. Brian claimed it was too loud and it was causing evil spirits to be sent through the wall, and so he barged in to Andre's room where he began beating him. Andre had finally had enough of all the violence he was receiving, and so grabbed an 8-inch butcher's knife and stabbed Brian in the back. When police arrived, Andre held his arms in the air and immediately gave himself up and spent 3 months in jail. However, the jury refused to issue an indictment and no mental health help was issued. During this time, Andre just fixated on trying to reconcile with Laura. But while he was doing so, he was struggling to make ends meet, and with his behaviour rapidly becoming more and more concerning and dangerous, Laura decided to reduce Andre's contact with his son. During this time, Laura met a new man called Brian Hughes. As they grew closer, they moved in together and had a baby girl called Leah. Only 3 weeks before the crime, Andre's mental health massively began to plummet. Thankfully, one of Andre's friends noticed this decline and tried to seek help for Andre by taking him to a mental health clinic. He'd demanded to speak to someone or he would take his own life. He told the staff, "Life is too much for me and I want to die right now." He was then advised to go to the nearest emergency room as they were concerned for the safety of others as well as Andre, and the psychiatrist urged for an emergency detention order to be issued, so if he didn't show up, he could be taken straight into police custody. Andre did not attend a hospital, and the police also didn't follow it up. Andre, his mum, and his new girlfriend at the time, Carmen Hayes, all lived together in a trailer. Andre's mental health still continued to decline. When only 2 days before the murder, his mum found him in the trailer on the 26th of March 2004 with self-inflicted stab wounds to his chest after being overly intoxicated with cough medicine. These injuries weren't deemed life-threatening, however, but the doctors made notes that Andre was paranoid and hallucinating. And while filing another emergency detention order, Andre left the hospital. Police were called, but once again, no contact had been made with Andre. Tragically, less than 24 hours later, the horrific crime unfolded. It was a clear morning on the 27th of March 2004. Andre Thomas headed to his estranged wife's third-floor apartment with 3 different knives, one for each of his victims. On his way to Laura's apartment, he passed her boyfriend, Bryant, leaving for work. Bryant waved at Andre, which he took as a sign that he was doing the right thing. He kicked down the door to find Laura, who was only 20 years old, and stabbed her fatally in the chest. She dropped to the floor and bled profusely. Andre then cut open her chest and removed a piece of her lung, believing it to be her heart. A dollar bill was left beside her body, folded in a way to highlight the eye that Andre was so obsessed with. He then continued to the children's bedroom, where he found his 4-year-old son Andre Jr. and Laura's 13-month-old daughter Leah, both sleeping. Andre proceeded his frenzy on the 2 children, first stabbing Andre Jr. in the chest before carving out his heart. Leah was removed from her bed and laid on the floor, where Andre repeated the same horrific actions, also removing the baby's heart. He then stabbed himself in the chest and laid on the floor next to Laura's body, expecting to bleed out and die. His injuries, however, weren't severe enough, and so he got back up and walked home, but not before placing the 2 hearts and Laura's piece of lung in his pocket. Once he was at home, he put the organs in a bag and put them in the bin before calling Laura's parents. After receiving no answer from the phone call, he left this voicemail. Sherry, this is Andre. I need y'all's help. Something bad is happening to me and it keeps happening and I don't know what is going on. I need some help. I think I'm in hell. I need help. Somebody needs to help. Somebody needs to come and help me. I need help bad. I'm desperate. I'm afraid to go to sleep. So when you get this message, come by the house, please. Hello? After hearing this very chilling voicemail, Laura's dad, Paul Boren, rushed to Laura's home at only 7:22 a.m. to be met with the most horrific scene. Upon arrival, he noticed the door had been kicked in and was not prepared for the gruesome scene he would witness. Laura's lifeless body was sprawled across the blood-stained living room carpet with gaping stab wounds to her chest. Down the hall, he found his 2 grandchildren with similar gaping wounds to the chest, surrounded by blood-spattered toys. Andre went on to confess his gruesome crime to his own girlfriend and his cousin. His girlfriend Carmen took Andre to the police, where he explained he believed Laura was Jezebel, the wife of Satan, Andre, his son, to be the Antichrist, and Leah was the embodiment of pure evil. While trying to ask for forgiveness, Andre stated that God had wanted them dead, so it was his religious mission to take action. He confessed he used 3 different knives so not to cross-contaminate the blood, which he believed would result in demons surviving. Andre underwent surgery to his chest and was transferred to jail to await trial, where he became more psychotic. He would be heard laughing manically within his cell and would often refer to Laura in the present tense, as he believed that Laura and the children were still alive, as he kept seeing them. In jail, Andre read the Bible extensively, until only 6 days after the murder, he read Matthew 5:29. If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better to lose part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. Andre, taking this verse quite literally, reached inside his right eye socket and gouged his eyeball right out. Could this have already been a sign that his actions were starting to dwell on him? Or was this just that he was seriously mentally unwell? His Bible was quite understandably swiftly removed from his possession. 3 psychologists evaluated Andre's mental state. They declared him incompetent to stand trial due to their diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia, so he was sent to state hospital. After 47 days of treatment and high doses of antipsychotic medication, doctors claimed Andre was exaggerating his symptoms, saying he was in a state of substance-induced psychosis. They then deemed him as competent, and so he was returned to stand trial. A year later, a jury came together and they deliberated for only 1 hour before reaching their verdict. Before receiving his sentence, the judge asked Andre if he had anything he wanted to say, and so he turned to Laura's family and said, "I want to say I am sorry for what I have done. I wish I could take it back. I am terribly sorry." Paul, Laura's father, told Andre he should stop seeking forgiveness from the victims as he destroyed their ability to forgive when he stole their lives. He went on to tell him it is only God that can now forgive him, and he hopes he can do so before putting that needle in Andre's arm, and he needs to realise it is what he deserves. Laura's mum, Sherry, described her pain by saying, "You just can't believe it's real. You're hoping it's not, that it's a dream or something. that you're going to wake up any minute. It's just absolutely devastating and highly ironic that prior to the murders, Laura's family had been so approving and accepting of Andre. Despite knowing his run-ins with the law, they still considered him a charming and smart young man, and viewed him as part of the family because he used to stay with them regularly. However, they'd had no knowledge at all of his alcohol and substance use, or the voices he would often hear. The jury sentenced Andre to death, finding him guilty of capital murder, rejecting all arguments of not guilty by reason of insanity by Andre's lawyers. Prosecutors argued his actions were fueled by substances, alcohol and cough medicine, and the removal of his own eye was caused by sudden withdrawals of his previous alcohol and substance usage. A doctor also claimed Andre deliberately exaggerated symptoms of mental health in hopes of avoiding punishment. Within his 6 by 10 foot cell, where he spent 23 hours in isolation, his mental health deteriorated even further. Continuing to hear voices, he saw 6-inch tall demons coming from the walls while playing music by Queen. Another attempt was made to take his own life using a razor to cut his neck, requiring 8 stitches. He couldn't understand why on earth he was being punished, as he seen it, God had asked him to do it. With his bare hands, he later gouged out his left eye and ate it, claiming to his attorney it was to ensure the government could no longer hear his thoughts, effectively leaving him completely blind. Following this, Andre was sent to the Jester 4 unit, which is a state prison psychiatric unit. Here he is left to do nothing but to contend with his own thoughts. Andre's execution was scheduled for the 5th of April 2023. However, his attorneys filed for clemency to reduce his sentence from death to life in prison. They raised questions and concern over executing the mentally ill. The district judge therefore withdrew Andre's execution date to allow time for his legal team to prove whether Andre is mentally competent to be killed by the state. Andre's attorneys referred to him as one of the most mentally ill prisoners in Texas history and said he's not at all competent to be executed, as Andre lacks a rational understanding of state's reason for execution. They also consider Andre to no longer be a threat to society due to his self-inflicted blindness. They went on to say, "As a blind and very sick man, Mr. Thomas poses no threat to others. Keeping him in a prison for the rest of his life would be a just punishment that keeps the public safe." However, the Texas court completely disagrees, stating that Thomas is clearly crazy, but he is also sane under Texas law. The jury has also claimed he knew right from wrong at the time of the crime. So that is all I have on this case for today. Do let me know your thoughts on this case in the comments. I'd love to know what your thoughts are. Do you think there might have been a different outcome if Andre had received the mental health care that he so obviously needed while growing up? And do you think Andre is sane enough to be executed? Do let me know down in the comments. And until next time.